with the latest episode of the anime, we saw the figure of 2 Gear Chronicle units. Very soon afterwards, one was identified as Novel Round Dragon. And today, we got the reveal of the second mysterious figure.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another episode of the Road to Nextage. Today we've got a surprising two new card reveals for Gear Chronicle, where one is a new double R, which I honestly didn't expect that we would get, as my hunch was that we only got 2 double Rs in this specific set. And I have to say, these 2 new cards that were revealed today are very interesting in their own regards, as we have yet again another grade 4 interaction card, just like the other Steam Sweepers that we had before, but this new double R that was featured in the anime is a pretty interesting card, as it really helps the Mystery Flare engine, or the Mystery Flare deck that we had with Lost Legend from last year, to do something, as it begins to turbo out to a almost like an Anger Blade turbo deck, and it does have some premium application. So without further ado, let's jump right into these new cards so you have an understanding what I'm talking about, and we can speculate of what type of impact these cards can have for Gear Chronicle. So first off, let's take a look at this new grade 4 interaction card that is this grade 1 Steam Sweeper Kalisha. And Kalisha's ability is Auto Rearguard Circle, and this is basically the same ability as the other two. At the beginning of your battle phase, until the end of turn, increase or decrease this unit's grade to match the grade of one of your Vanguard. So this is identical to the other Steam Sweepers that we got before. And then its unique ability is Auto Rearguard Circle. When your grade 4 units attack hits a Vanguard, cast Soul Blast 1, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So with the same clause that it can change its Vanguard grade, it helps to empower or to basically up the consistency of the grade 2 that could potentially draw for free. So it makes that card a lot more plausible than just with only one grade 1 support card. It also makes the other grade 1 a bit better, as it has more targets to potentially boost, where it doesn't only rely on itself, the grade 2, and on your typical grade 4. So it makes those cards better in a general sense. But also this card helps other cards like we have explained before, like Astral Dragon and that type of cards to interact or at least have some more utility to them. But its own ability is very unique, as in this new archetype of this Steam Sweeper mechanic, it makes potentially all your attacks to have an on-hit effect. And that is a big thing, especially for a Force clan, and especially for gears where typically your rearguards aren't amounting to much. With this on-hit effect on those attacks makes that trade-off a bit better, as you can also have some control actions to it. But also, if you just plop this in just your typical deck for Gear Chronicle that isn't interacting or isn't focused about this grade 4 mechanic, then it makes all your normal grade 4s, basically your strike units, even better, as they all have an inherent on-hit effect. And what's nice about this card is that it can stack. So you can have 2 of these units onto the field, and if your Vanguard attack hits, you can Soul Blast 2 and retire 2. So if you combine it with Rebellion, you can have almost a field wipe on your hand. This is an interesting thing that I think has the most potential, unlike the other grade 2, unlike the other 2 cards, to have some future potential that can arise back from the grave once we're done with this support wave. But now we get to the big boy, the one that was featured in the anime, and that is this grade 3 Renovate Wing Dragon. And its ability is pretty insane, because it's act on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle once per turn, cast Soul Blast 1 and bind 2 rearguards. Look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, call 2 cards from among them to the Rearguard Circle and bind a card from among them. So basically what this card does is, for a Soul Blast, you bind 2 rearguards, you get 2 new rearguards, and you bind another card from the top 3 of your deck. So you add 3 cards in your bind zone, which from 2 you have completely control of what that's gonna be, and the third one you have somewhat control in only the top 3 cards. This is pretty good for Mystery Flare. It's not so good for the Chrono Tiger or the Rebellion build, as the binding and all thing doesn't really help the deck at all. But for Mystery Flare, this basically makes Astral Dragon obsolete, as this one gives you way more value. It is a Soul Blast instead of a Counter Blast. But the fun thing about this card is that it doesn't state other rearguards. So you can use its ability on a Rearguard Circle and then bind another grade 2 or grade 3 and itself get 2 new units onto the board, and then bind another card from the top of your deck. And that basically gives this card a lot of potential to accelerate the amount of grades in your bind zone to insanity with only one Soul Blast. Because if you're super lucky, you can go from 0 bind to 13 bind for 1 Soul Blast with only this card effect. Because what you can do is use this ability, have another grid free on the rearguard circle, so you bind itself and the other grid free, which is 6 binds. Then you check the top 3, you call whatever 2 cards from among them, and if you're lucky, and in those top 3 is a Valkyrian, and yes, Gear Chronicle currently with the Mystery Flare build is gonna run Valkyrian, then you can bind that card as well, which makes it 11. And then if you have something like a Lipid in your hand, you can call that, and the Soul Blasted card, which is most likely a grade 2 because you're gonna Soul Blast the highest grade, you can then bind that one and have 13 bind. So by resolving this card effect, you can add potentially 13 bind zone cards, which is pretty nuts if you think about it. That acceleration is what the Mystery Flare build really needed to have a more consistent way of getting to the powerful plays a lot sooner. But what also can happen is that you can use this ability, bind itself and other cards, and see in the top 3 another copy of itself. Then you can call it and use its effect again. So there are interesting ways how this can chain off to some insane combo potential where it can potentially happen, where you can get Mystery Flare on turn 1. Which is insane to think about if you can get 19 grades in bind zones by the first grade 3 turn. So potentially you have the second turn while your opponent is still at grade 2. Because this card on its own can accelerate the bind zone so rapidly, you might even be able to experiment with less cards that are focusing around binding cards and more about having a offensive plays in the early game. So we can look at the whole Steam Sweeper archetype, or maybe the great double R grade 2 that gives us extra drive checks, maybe even the Chrono Bite or Chrono Tooth cards. We can experiment with different cards that don't necessarily focus around binding a lot of cards in the early game, because this card on its own can add up so much grades in the bind zone, which is nuts to think about. So this card is a warm welcome for the Mystery Flare build to make it somewhat 2020 proof. People have also been somewhat very crafting about how you can use it in premium, and the most used or the most seen situation or argument that's been thrown around online is that you can use this card in combination with 2 Oratars, so you can bind those 2 Oratars, activate those abilities, and get your stuff active for your whole Time Leap deck. But I honestly don't think that that's the correct play or the play you actually want to go for, especially in the Time Leap deck, because what you're doing is you're removing the Oratars from the field, which is your combo extender to some extent with your whole multi-Time Leap, mid-battle Time Leap effect. So you remove them, you draw a bunch of cards, you're not sure what you're going to get, it can be junk, and that means you're not going to get the field that you need for your Time Leap combos. Also, by drawing a lot of cards, you're doing actively against what the thing that Time Leap wants to do is, before you go into the battle phase, you want to draw as less as possible, so all your combo pieces, or all the pieces that you want to Time Leap to, are still in your deck. So by drawing a bunch of cards in the main phase, can effectively screw you over by negating a certain card that you wanted to go to, so you can extend to more combos or more attacks, basically. And the whole Time Leap engine is all around Time Leaping in the battle phase and not in the main phase. So removing your Oratars in the main phase can potentially screw you over more than it gets you. Also, running this card in the Time Leap deck means you're gonna run more awkward cards that are very specific for a very specific situation, which is not ideal to do. But what I think this card can help in a premium aspect is in a complete different direction. Not Time Leap, not Chrono Jet, but more around Chrono Fang. And I mean the actual Chrono Fang, not the one that we get in standard. No, the Chrono Fang from premium, which is all around binding as many cards as possible, so your Chrono Tiger Rebellion Stride or your Gear Glare Stride is getting more and more power. And it also combines very effectively with Nani, which gets even more power because you just put 3 extra cards in your bind zone. But another build where this card can actively shine a lot because you're putting so many cards into the bind zone and you have some control over what, and then calling in new cards to the field, is Demiurge. This is excellent for a ZTB Demiurge build because you're putting so much extra cards into the bind zone for little cost, and you can rebuild a new field, which can chain off to even more effects that can bind even more cards. So yeah, I think this has potential for a premium application for Gears, but not for Chrono Jet and Time Leap. And those were basically the new cards that were revealed for Gear Chronicle today, which is basically the end of the reveals for Astral Force for Gear Chronicle. Yes, we still have 3 cards and the triggers to be revealed, but the triggers we already know there's gonna be reprints and we're gonna get the third crit. And for the 3 spots that are left is 1 grade 1 rare, which is gonna be the drop draw grade 1 PG, which is also gonna be featured in the Chrono Jet trial deck. And then we have 1 common grade 1 and 1 common grade 2, which to my hunch is gonna be a grade 2 vanilla and a grade 1 vanilla. And probably the grade 2 vanilla is going to be the 12k, maybe another 10k, but I think it's going to be 12k. And for the grade 1, it's very likely that it's going to be a 7k, 15k shield, but it could be a 9k grade 1. But there's also potential that only one of the two is going to be a vanilla, and the other one is going to be a random common, which won't really do that much for the deck as a whole. So I think this is going to be the last Road to Next Stage episode where we're gonna be focused around the new reveals for Astral Force, but it doesn't mean we're done with the Road to Next Stage at all, because it's called the Road to Next Stage. We still have a long way to go to Next Stage. And what I think I'm gonna do before we're gonna dive into the Chrono Jet reveals, because it depends if Bushi is gonna reveal the Chrono Jet trial decks or the Gear Chronicle cards of the trial decks very, very soon, then maybe I will put in an extra video where I'm gonna discuss about the different premium combos, because I've been talking mostly about the standard application of these cards for Astral Force. So maybe I'm going to put in one extra video where I'm going to take a look at all the new interesting combos that we can do in premium with these new cards. As there are some interesting things, like I discussed with Renovate Wing Dragon, what you can do in premium with Demiurge and Nani and with Chronofang. But there are some other interesting things that do function or have an application with Time Leap. So if I can find the time for that, I'm going to do that. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in that type of video for the premium application, what type of combos we can do with Time Leap, Chronofang, Rebellion, or with Demiurge, with ZTB. Then hit me on the comments and I might get to that. But also let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new cards for Gear Chronicle. What do you think of the latest Steam Sweeper edition and this new grade 3 that is Renovate Wing Dragon, that can really accelerate the amount of bind zones cards or grades in your bind zones to help all kinds of interesting strategies for Gear Chronicle. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at Patreon. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel and everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a patron today. Well, with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!